The outrage is palpable, the anger visible, and the frustration is mounting.
Tonight, the country's patience is stretched to its limit. The numbers are numbing and the frequency is shocking.
4 years into its term in office, the stain on the fabric of the Jubilee administration can no longer be concealed. Some of its harshest critics are saying it plainly, and I quote, "This is the most corrupt government in the history of Kenya."
From Eurobond to NYS, Hustlers Jet to the Standard Gauge Railway, and now the Ministry of Health and the health sector on its deathbed, the illustrations are countless.
Tonight on NTV, we call out on official corruption in government, systematically perpetrated and condoned by those who serve in it.
The state of corruption in Kenya is at crisis proportions. The country is seemingly floating, unguided on where the answers lie.
And just a week ago, President Uhuru Kenyatta seemed to raise his hands up in surrender. And the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the body mandated with fighting the vice, is in shambles. No chairman and no credible Kenyan willing to apply for that job.
On NTV Tonight, we raise the alarm. This trend is simply unsustainable.
Corruption is about to swallow the future of the country as those in positions of responsibility appear to either participate, abdicate, or just stand aside.
On NTV Tonight, we call it by its name. System ya Majambazi.
Hivi ndivyo si ufanya. Hivi ndivyo si ufanya.
Guy.
System ya Majambazi. Majambazi.
The Jubilee government have failed spectacularly.
Majambazi. Majambazi. Mano ya Majambazi.
The bigger the amount of money involved, the more the delay.
Majambazi.
Don't throw blame game.
The DPP is right here. I don't want to pass the buck, but he knows very well.
We have 5 cabinet secretaries.
Kila mtu apende it wasn't me.
His difference with what the AG said.
This is by far the most corrupt government in our history.
Majambazi. Majambazi. Mano ya Majambazi. Majambazi.
Welcome to the broadcast. Our sign language interpreter tonight is Flora Atieno.
Detectives have moved to Afia House after an internal audit report revealed grand-scale theft.
This as senators demand that top officials in the Ministry of Health step aside to allow Parliament commence investigations into the theft of 5 billion shillings.
Both health committees of the National Assembly and the Senate have summoned Health Cabinet Secretary Cleopas Mailu and his Principal Secretary next week to respond to the scandal.
And Oxikolia reports.
Now, questions have been raised over the missing 5 billion shillings here at the Ministry of Health, and the relevant Senate committee had planned to begin investigations into the scam on Thursday. But key ministry officials failed to appear before the Health Committee.
We have been waiting for the Minister and the peers since 9 o'clock, and we can wait no more. But we have received information from the ministry that their appearance to us is not intentional, because they have been tied by the same matter in the office.
Members of the committee are calling on the president to act even as investigations into the scandal begins.
Embezzlement of funds seems to be an exercise that seems to be gaining popularity.
The president must ask these people to step aside. Scandals are becoming too many in this country.
Really, we are tired as Kenyans. They should step aside.
The National Assembly's Health Committee held a meeting on Thursday, resolving to invite the Cabinet Secretary and the Principal Secretary next week to provide insights into the scandal. NTV has established that indeed detectives have been visiting Afia House since Wednesday. Now, the ministry maintains that it has nothing to hide and that the audit process that will form basis of investigations into the missing billions is still ongoing.
People must take political responsibility, not the CS telling us, really, that they will look into this matter.
What is somebody trying to collect?
The CS maintains that it was based on a draft audit report that the ministry acknowledges, and that action will be taken to guarantee and preserve the value of taxpayers' money. Auditors, however, believe more money could have been lost through dubious procurement of medical supplies. Enoch Sikolia, NTV.
The Ministry of Health has been rocked by one scandal after another. But what is disturbing in the recent case is that the owners of the companies that are the biggest beneficiaries of the part of the 5 billion loot remain unknown.
Mercy Juma Okande delves deeper into the ownership question and some of the scams that have rocked the health ministry in the recent past.
Revelations of individuals sharing taxpayers' money like birthday cake is causing Kenyans a lot of pain. The bitter pill is the faceless individuals behind the entities that pocketed this money. The single largest receiver of the payments meant for free maternity care is Estama Investments Limited, which was paid 800 million shillings upfront to deliver mobile clinics, which they never did. Yet no one can tell who the directors of this company are. A search at the Registrar of Companies does not give any names of directors. The search also shows that Estama Investments had not paid taxes in the past 2 years, and therefore its details were not available on digital records. Companies that have not paid tax since 2014 do not have digital records, and their details must be sought manually. The big question remains, who is Estama? Who are these faceless directors? Sources tell NTV that the company is owned by influential people in government. This 5 billion shillings Ministry of Health scandal that mimics and overshadows the NYS scam may be the biggest yet, but is not the only one to have shaken this ministry. Just a few days ago, it was revealed in a shocking indictment that individuals from the Ministry of Health stole from children. Kenya is to refund some 160 million shillings donor money stolen at the Ministry of Health and explain the loss of 730,000 doses of vaccine given by a donor, Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunizations, Gavi. An audit by Gavi says the Ministry of Health was unable to provide supporting documentation for $631,943 for expenses and $972,340 for the procurement of goods and services. The Gavi review further uncovered shortcuts that helped escape scrutiny and oversight by Parliament. It told of loopholes that allowed salary payments to ghost workers and payments for goods that were never delivered.
That report will give to the relevant authorities to be able to take action. Some are administrative. As a ministry, we might take those administrative decisions where people are available. But remember, it happened before devolution. Most of these people have moved on, but if they are within the country, we'll be able to follow, and everybody will be, whoever is culpable of any misdeed will be dealt with accordingly.
The theft that subsequently prompted the rejection of the country's 3.4 billion shillings vaccine appeal last year has put the lives of newborn babies at risk, with reports indicating some public facilities across the country are without the vital supplies. Gavi Vaccine Alliance has suspended further funding through the ministry until the mess is satisfactorily cleared. In May this year, there were revelations of another elaborate plan to steal nearly 18.2 million shillings in forged vouchers for fictitious payments by procurement officers in the Ministry of Health. The payments were for stationery, chemicals and reagents in the National Quality Control Laboratory. However, these payments were intercepted by some of the directors of NKCL. Otherwise, 8 companies would have pocketed over 18.2 million shillings. 7 of these companies were purporting to supply chemicals and reagents, while one, Springline Agencies Limited, was to supply stationery worth 795,000 shillings to the government facility. Mercy Juma Okande, NTV.
Now let's give you a closer look at the health PS. Dr. Nicholas Muraguri is the accounting officer at the Ministry of Health, and now we're going to take you through his journey to public service.
That's right. Dr. Muraguri has a postgraduate certificate in applied epidemiology from the University of Nairobi. Pardon me about that. He also holds a bachelor's degree in surgery and medicine from Moi University and a master's degree in public health from Pretoria University. He also holds a master's degree in business administration and is said to be working on a PhD.
Now, after graduating, he worked as a medical officer at the district and provincial levels in the eastern region from 1998 to 2001. He served as a director, Division of Health Promotion in the Ministry of Health from 2004 to 2008. He also served as the director for the National AIDS and STI Control Program, NASCOP, at the Ministry of Public Health and Sanitation from 2008 to 2012. And from 2012 to 2014, he was the executive director for the Joint United Nations Programme on HIV.
Well, before ascending to his current job, he was Director of Medical Services from July 2014 to December last year, even though the parliamentary committee that vetted him invited submissions from the public about his suitability. Not a single one was received. The committee noted in its report that he had never been charged in a court of law and had no evidence of conflict of interest.
At the time of Dr. Muraguri's approval on the 14th of December 2015, he had not been adversely mentioned in any investigatory report of Parliament or any commission of inquiry. Now, he had quickly risen through the ranks in the ministry, even edging out a competitor in a vicious power struggle in his previous job. Well, they both ended up as principal secretaries in different ministries, which must make for interesting working relations.
Now to a different sort of profile, and that's on the administration. President Uhuru Kenyatta's 4-year Jubilee administration is facing charges of potentially being the most corrupt government in Kenya's 53-year independence history.
Now, Jubilee, a coalition between President Kenyatta and the Deputy President Ruto, came to office on the promise of change. But many Kenyans feel the administration is sliding to levels no previous government has hit, especially on the issue of corruption.
Victoria Rubadiri now trails what can aptly be termed the Jubilee corruption train.
So, mnataka nifanye nini jameni? That I have not done.
In his most recent encounter with corruption allegations, President Uhuru Kenyatta was a man in denial. In a State House summit with senior officials of his administration, President Kenyatta led a circular firing squad, treating a stunned audience to a spectacular blame game. But the 250 billion shilling Eurobond question just never goes away. The government's own Auditor General contends that some 215 billion shillings of the Eurobond funds could not be accounted for.
This is by far the most corrupt government in our history.
Frustrated Kenyans are quickly accepting the conclusion by critics that President Kenyatta's is the most corrupt administration in the country's history.
Matters that have to do with procurement or finance have nothing to do with a cabinet secretary.
When the 791 million shilling National Youth Service scandal broke last year, one of the principal suspects, then Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru, seemed to openly muse, "Why only me?"
I have been advised by my doctor, who's sitting next to me, to take time off, to recover, and to undertake much lighter duties for some time.
After much public pressure, Waiguru reluctantly left cabinet, citing not the NYS case, but personal health. Earlier in the term, the Jubilee administration was rocked by the Hustler's Jet scandal that demonstrated the government officials' taste for finer things. Approximately 100 million shillings was spent to hire a private jet to ferry Deputy President William Ruto on a 4-nation West African tour.
Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say nay? Yes. The nays have it.
15 months later, though, the Jubilee-controlled parliament promptly voted down a report questioning the Hustler Jet expenditure.
So, the report falls.
On another transportation matter, this time some 30,000 feet below on the standard gauge railway tracks, key figures of the multi-billion shilling mega project just weren't adding up. Numbers quoted by Deputy President William Ruto showed the project would cost about $3.9 million per kilometer. Transport Principal Secretary Nduva Muli would put that cost at about $2.8 million per kilometer. This showed a variance of 15.9 billion shillings. In August 2014, China pledged 425 billion shillings to Kenya for phase 1 of the project from Mombasa to Nairobi. And last year, reports of an additional 1.3 trillion shillings needed to complete the standard gauge railway from Mombasa to Kigali emerged, further putting into question just how much taxpayers will be dishing out. 4 years of one corruption scandal after the other is putting the Uhuru administration in an unfavorable light, with a recent 5 billion shilling loss in the Ministry of Health, the latest wagon to be hitched on the Jubilee corruption train. And tonight, Kenyans would pose just what else is out there to be revealed. Victoria Rubadiri, NTV.
Well, as the infectious vice of corruption eats into the Ministry of Health, Kenyans who dig deeper to pay taxes are divided on the government's efforts to fight graft.
Here's a sample of their views.
These are the people we trust with our money for medical. Some of us cannot afford the medical that those people can afford. You see, and it being happening that there's also corruption in that ministry, it's really unfortunate.
Hii pesa ambayo inaibiwa ni mingi sana. Tungependa wale ambao wanaiba washikwe. Na hii pesa ikusanywe isaidie watu ambao hawana msaada wa kupata hii Kenya.
Sisi kama watu ambao huwa tunalipa ushuru, tunasikia huzuni sana wakati tunapata mambo kama haya yanatokea. Na ningependa hasa serikali hii ya Jubilee ikaze kamba na ihakikishe kwamba inapigana na ufisadi.
Those people who have stolen this money should take responsibility. These are people who have been put in offices to take care of our money. They cannot be in the office and then they tell us money is lost. So they take full responsibility. They should repay back the money. Whether they are charged in court, what we want is our money.
Hivi ndivyo si ufanya.
Gai.
The Jubilee government have failed spectacularly.
The bigger the amount of money involved, the more the delay.
Don't throw blame game.
The DPP is right here. I don't want to pass the buck, but he knows very well.
We have 5 cabinet secretaries.
It wasn't me.
His difference with what the AG said.
This is by far the most corrupt government in our history.
Majambazi.